Thank you, Stephanie, so much for organizing the symposium. I'm really excited today to talk about two projects in collaboration with Mary Murphy, Sabrina Zirkle, and Julie Garcia. And in these particular projects, we're interested in looking at another cue in academic environments that importantly shape students' experiences in them. And particularly, we're interested in how students perceive the lay theories of their instructors. And we're interested in one particular group. We're interested in the experiences for women in their college classes, particularly those that are STEM, so science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. So to talk a little bit about lay theories of intelligence just refers to a belief of the nature of intelligence. So where does intelligence come from? How do we tell sort of the differentiate between people with different intelligence levels? And so the research suggests that we sort of have two ways in which we differentiate people. We have fixed mindset and growth mindset. And for those that have a fixed mindset, these are the individuals that think that intelligence is innate, so sort of fixed at birth in a sense. However, those that have a growth mindset, they believe that intelligence is something that can be developed with time, effort, receptiveness to feedback, and being able to find the right strategies that allow them to succeed. So we're interested in how perceiving others to have these fixed or growth mindsets might be influential. And the reason why we particularly chose this certain cue is that we know when looking at how people personally endorse these type of mindsets, it has a lot of important implications for them. Specifically perceiving or specifically endorsing a fixed mindset yourself relative to endorsing a growth mindset, we see that there's reduction in motivation, interest, persistence, and then importantly, performance and sometimes identification. So we know that a fixed mindset compared to a growth mindset can have very different cascading implications in the classroom. But as I said, we're very much interested in sort of moving beyond personal endorsements of these lay theories and really looking at how people perceive others with these theories of intelligence. So here we're very much interested in how our perceptions of others, some theories of intelligence, influence performance expectations in the classroom. And we know from work from our lab, especially amazing work by Kathy Emerson, that what we think other people believe about who is likely to succeed is incredibly important. So this could be in the workplace or it can be in the classroom. When we have a sense that our boss, our mentor, our advisor, our instructor, we have a sense that they might endorse a fixed mindset, we see that that leads to sort of negative consequences for students in their classrooms. And so to just give you a sense of, give more sort of concrete suggestions or concrete examples of what students are perceiving, we actually asked students, how do you sort of differentiate who you think a professor might have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And here are a couple of the things that students told us when they perceived one of their instructors had a fixed mindset. So some of these things are very explicit statements of you either are the kind of person who has the skills to understand math or you don't. It could also be that really dreaded, you're at the first day of class in a really large STEM class and they do the turn to your left, turn to your right. One of these individuals won't be here after midterm. So a lot of us can think of these really sort of explicit cues that might lead us to think that instructors sort of hold this fixed mindset. But our lab is also interested in other, maybe more subtle ways in which this mindset could be problematic. And one of those is how a professor structures a course. So we found that oftentimes people said when the professor really only has these high-stakes testing situations, so there's only a midterm or a final, that signals to them that that professor might have a fixed mindset. And also if a professor doesn't allow for review either in class or during office hours, or doesn't provide study guides or practice problems, that these also can signal that there are certain people that just get it. That we don't necessarily need review, we don't necessarily need sort of feedback as we're learning in order to improve. For the individuals that our students said they thought likely had an incremental or a growth mindset, they said the opposite of this. So they had professors that on the first day stressed that they thought that everyone could achieve what they sort of expected, set out for in that course, and then talked really specifically about the strategies that would make them more successful in their class. And they also gave them many, many opportunities to learn, so regular quizzes and feedback. So So in particular, so for our hypotheses, we are very much interested in how this perception of a fixed mindset or perception of a growth mindset could lead to certain groups feeling greater threat in their particular classes. And so we hypothesized that when you perceive that your instructor, your STEM instructor, has this fixed belief, that you perceive then that they think that STEM abilities cannot be changed, that you either have them or you don't. Well, if you perceive that your STEM instructor or your just instructor in general has a growth mindset, you think that they believe that abilities can be improved with effort and learning. And so the reason why this differentiation is important is that you can think of if you're a member of a group that there's negative stereotypes at play, like for women in STEM, these type of messages can lead to potentially differential activation in the stereotypes or the expectations that you think that your instructors have for you. So the inferences that could be made when you perceive that your instructor might have a fixed mindset, that you think that that instructor might expect men to outperform or to be more likely to belong in STEM classes. Well, when you have the inference that your instructor has a growth mindset, you might believe then that your instructor believes that men and women can perform equally, or you might not even think of gender at all. So what we expect here is as a student, you perceiving an instructor have a fixed or growth mindset. If you perceive the instructor have a fixed mindset, it can create a context of stereotype threat. So thinking about that some have it or they don't, then you start to think about which group has it, which group doesn't, and if you're a woman in STEM, you think then it's you. So in our studies today, we are very much interested in sort of testing this hypothesis that perceiving fixed mindsets among STEM instructors should increase this experience of threat. And we're particularly interested in reductions in belonging, so lower belonging, but also sort of a little bit further downstream consequences. So being concerned about stereotypes that are at play might lead you to expend a lot more mental resources, so be more cognitively depleted, but also down the road reduce identification maybe with college, and also have lower expectations for graduation. So specifically, I'm going to talk about two studies. The first one, it was an experience sampling study, where in students' actual classes, we asked them at the beginning of the semester about their perceptions of their instructors' mindsets. And we were interested in seeing if perceiving STEM instructors to have a fixed mindset would relate to lower belonging and higher cognitive depletion for women in their actual STEM classes. In study 2, we wanted to sort of take a more broad view, and that we wanted to be able to see whether or not highlighting a growth mindset message in STEM classes promotes greater intentions to persist and identify for female students in college. So for study 1, we had 119 college freshmen and sophomores. Although they hadn't identified or chosen a major yet, they were very much highly identified with STEM. And they hailed from a large urban public university. And we had them at the very beginning of the semester provide their perception of every professor that they had, their theory of intelligence. So for every STEM and every non-STEM professor, they rated to what extent they thought they perceived that that instructor had a fixed or growth mindset. And then we gave them, it's a little outdated now, but we gave them iPod Touches back in the day before they were really cool apps. And so they carried them with them when they went to class, and after each of their STEM and non-STEM classes, they rated their experience in that class. And the two key outcomes I'm going to talk about today are belonging and cognitive depletion. So for belonging, they answered 5 items. An example of this would be, how much do you feel that you fit in during this particular class? And then for cognitive depletion, they answered 4 items, an example here being, I felt mentally exhausted. So we did find 3-way interactions between the class context and the gender of the participant and the perception of the instructor's lay theories. So I'm going to break down this 3-way interaction. So here first for belonging, we break it down first by male and female participants, and then by non-STEM and STEM class. And then you'll see that the lines refer to less to more fixed-mindedness in terms of their perceptions of their instructors' lay theories. So for men, pretty much the only thing we found was a significant slope in terms of lay theory. So overall, as they perceived an instructor have more fixed mindset, they had less belonging. It's a little hard see that here, but that was pretty much the only sort of relationship we found for men. But you can see that the difference really is striking for female participants. So that in there, we see this interaction between class context and the perception of their professor's lay theories, such that it's really in the STEM context where you see as an instructor, or the perceived instructor's lay theory becomes more fixed. You see it's associated with lower belonging, as we would expect if our hypothesis that it's creating a context of stereotype threat is at play. Relatedly, you can see a similar pattern here for cognitive depletion, but here we would expect greater cognitive depletion. And you see for men, again, there's really just this slope such that as you perceive your instructor to have more of a fixed mindset, male participants rated themselves as being more depleted. And we see the nice interaction here for female participants between class type and their perception of professors' lay theories. So it's really, again, in the STEM context that the more that you perceive your instructor, your STEM instructor, to have a fixed mindset, the greater cognitive depletion they report immediately after that particular class. So we did find in this first study, in the experience sampling study, that perceiving your professors as having a fixed mindset was significantly related to lower belonging and greater cognitive depletion for women, but specifically in their STEM classes. And so in study 2, we wanted to see, well, what if the instructors included a growth mindset message in a STEM class? Would that be particularly beneficial for female college students? And our key outcomes in this study is a little bit different. We're interested in college identification and expectation to graduate. And the reason why is because we had this opportunity to use an online university sample. And this school had a really large problem with retention rates. And also you could think in an online university, you might not have a strong identification with college just because of the nature of the course, of the college. So in this sample, we had 566 students from this online university. Although we have women outnumber men, this is pretty representative of that university. It's also important to note that a majority of these participants were non-traditional students. So the average age was 32. 77% of our participants said that they had at least one child, and about 55% said that they were working a full-time job along with going to college. So here we had participants randomly assigned to receive a growth mindset message or a control study skills message that was folded into the very beginning of an online module for their course. So they read information about the growth mindset or effective study skills written by an expert, and then wrote an essay sort of referring back to that respective message. And we included this in either a communications course, which is the non-STEM class, or the math course, which is the STEM course. And we measured college identification with 3 items. Going to college is important to me. We also asked how strongly do you identify with being a college student? And then our expectations to graduate, sort of our proxy of persistence here, is how confident are you that you'll graduate from this university? So again, we find significant 3-way interactions between participant gender, the type of class this message was provided in, and the growth versus control message. So I'll break those down. So you see here on the left, for male participants, the orange bars are the growth mindset that was present in the class. The control is, remember, study skills here. And the only difference we see here is in the non-STEM class, where you see that the growth mindset, the male participants rated greater identification with college, while the opposite is the case for female participants, that it's really truly in their STEM classes that you see that the growth mindset leads to this increase in college identification. We see a similar pattern for expectations to graduate. So again, on the left for male participants, we see the divergence between the growth and control condition in the non-STEM class, so the communications class, while it's in the STEM class that you see that having a growth mindset relative to the control study skills information, that you see an uptick, a marginal uptick for female participants in their expectations to graduate. So in summary, across these studies, we provide initial evidence that in actual classrooms, that perceiving your instructor's theories of intelligence critically shapes the experiences of women in STEM. So it impacts their belonging, the cognitive depletion that they experience in class, but also downstream consequences of identification. And in the future, with existing data and also with other follow-up studies, we are exploring the performance outcomes of these particular messages. In future directions, and really cool work that we're starting in the lab, that we're interested in comparing students' perceptions to instructors' actual teaching. So we're going to be able to see how much those sort of relate to one another, what are instructors saying in the classroom that are leading to, within that particular class, drops in belonging. And then in a budding collaboration with Melissa Feasting and Amanda Diekman, exploring how growth mindset can relate to another cue that we know is prominent for women in STEM, communal affordances, or seeing STEM as something that can be used in working with others. So we really hope, in closing for this work, to be able to provide insights to help instructors convey a growth mindset, whether that is in their syllabi or in the way that they communicate with their students. So I want to thank you all, a very warm thank you, and for the individuals that are helping in this research, the Murphy Lab and the Pertz Center, particularly Daniel Green. Thank you, guys.